My daughter stole my life savings for her dream home. I showed up to her housewarming with a demolition order. The elegant cream envelope lay on Aurelia Vance's antique mahogany desk, a stark, almost insolent contrast to the quiet dignity of her study. The room itself was a sanctuary, smelling faintly of aged leather, polished wood, and the faint, sweet scent of the heirloom roses that bloomed outside her window. Sunlight, filtered through the delicate lace curtains, illuminated dust motes dancing in the air, a picture of tranquil domesticity. But the envelope, heavy and ostentatious, shimmered with a glittering gold crest, far too gaudy for Aurelia's refined, understated taste. Yet it was perfectly in line with the sensibilities of its sender, her only daughter, Serafina Vance Sterling, and her perpetually up-and-coming husband, Sterling. Aurelia's fingers, gnarled with age but still possessing a surprising grace, traced the raised lettering of the invitation. You are cordially invited to celebrate the housewarming of Serafina and Sterling Vance Sterling's magnificent new estate. The address followed, a sprawling, newly constructed property on the most exclusive cul-de-sac in Greenwich, Connecticut, a place Aurelia had only ever heard described in hyperbolic terms by Serafina. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through Aurelia's hand, but it was not from frailty, nor from the usual weary resignation she had come to associate with Serafina's grand announcements. It was the quiet ripple of a long-dormant volcano stirring within her, a deep, unsettling vibration that promised a cataclysm. Just 3 days prior, a call from her longtime financial advisor, Mr. Albright, had delivered news that had cleaved her world in two, not with a sudden, violent blow, but with the cold, precise cut of a surgeon's blade. Her entire life savings, the substantial inheritance from her beloved late husband, Edward Vance, had been meticulously, systematically siphoned from her accounts. Every last cent was gone, vanished into the ether of an elaborate financial scheme. Mr. Albright, his voice tight with apology and thinly veiled horror, had informed her that the primary recipient of these illicitly transferred funds appeared to be a complex web of holding companies, all linked directly to the construction of Serafina and Sterling's new dream home. The phrase echoed in Aurelia's mind, a cruel, mocking epitaph for her lost security. Aurelia's gaze remained fixed on the gilded invitation. Serafina hadn't called, hadn't visited, hadn't even sent a text message about the housewarming beyond a casual, gloating announcement a month prior. The invitation, impersonal and formal, had simply arrived. It was not an invitation to a shared joy, a celebration of family. No, it was a veiled pronouncement of triumph, a public, gloating insult after the deepest, most calculated betrayal. For years, Aurelia had hoped for genuine connection, for the warmth of family, for a simple, unasked-for gesture of affection. But now, a cold, hard truth settled in her heart, chilling her to the bone. This housewarming was nothing more than a final, public mockery of her generosity, her unwavering trust, and her very existence as anything more than a financial wellspring to be drained dry. Aurelia closed her eyes, a lifetime of quiet sacrifices flashing before her mind's eye. The initial shock had given way to a profound sense of emptiness, a hollow ache where her future security once lay. But now, a different emotion was taking root. It was not the familiar ache of sorrow, nor the stinging burn of betrayal she had known so many times before. It was a cold, crystalline resolve, forming like a diamond under immense pressure. She opened her eyes, their cerulean depths, once soft and yielding, now holding a glint of unyielding steel. She picked up the ornate invitation once more, her expression unreadable, betraying none of the seismic shift occurring within her. There would be no gift, no congratulations, no quiet, resigned smile. Aurelia Vance would indeed attend the housewarming, but she would arrive with a present far more impactful than Serafina or Sterling could ever imagine, a legitimate demolition order. The game, Aurelia decided, had finally changed, irrevocably. To truly understand the quiet fury now simmering beneath Aurelia's composed exterior, one had to delve into the labyrinthine history of her relationship with her daughter, Serafina, and her son-in-law, Sterling. Aurelia Vance had married well. Her late husband, Edward Vance, had been more than just a successful architect. He was a visionary, a man of integrity and quiet strength, leaving behind not just a legacy of iconic structures that dotted the Northeast landscape, but also a substantial fortune, built meticulously over decades through talent and shrewd, honest dealings. For Aurelia, money was never an end in itself, it was a means to ensure the comfort and happiness of her family, particularly her only child, Serafina. She believed, with a gentle and unwavering conviction that bordered on naivete, that showering her daughter with opportunities and material comforts would solidify a bond of love and appreciation. She was, in essence, trying to buy the affection and connection she so deeply craved, mistakenly believing that financial generosity equated to emotional intimacy. From the moment Serafina was old enough to express a desire, Aurelia had indulged it. A child's fleeting wish for a particular doll transformed into a room overflowing with toys. Teenage whims for designer clothes became closets crammed with the latest fashion. This pattern escalated into adulthood. When Serafina turned 30, she had lamented her aging car, a perfectly functional, albeit standard, sedan. "Mother, it's just so pedestrian," Serafina had sighed dramatically during a rare lunch, her eyes scanning the restaurant, always looking for someone more interesting. Aurelia, without a moment's hesitation, had purchased her a brand new Mercedes S-Class, fully paid for, complete with a personalized license plate. "It's a gift, darling," Aurelia had smiled, hoping for a genuine hug, a heartfelt thank you that conveyed appreciation beyond the material. Serafina had merely given a fleeting peck on her cheek and immediately called her friends, her voice loud with boastful descriptions of her new acquisition, barely acknowledging Aurelia's presence. A familiar pang of disappointment would settle in Aurelia's chest, quickly rationalized away as Serafina's way. Years later, when Serafina decided her family needed a starter mansion in the Hamptons to match their burgeoning social status, Aurelia had provided the multi-million-dollar down payment, depleting a significant portion of her liquid assets. Serafina had presented it as an opportunity, a shrewd investment that would appreciate exponentially. "It's an investment in your future, my dear," Aurelia had reasoned with herself, ignoring the nagging whisper that it was less an investment and more a continuous, unreciprocated drain. Sterling, ever the opportunist, his charm a thin veneer over a core of avarice, had seized upon Aurelia's generosity like a shark to chum. His various, innovative, startup ventures, each more poorly conceived than the last, consistently failed. Yet, each failure was met with another elaborate plea to Aurelia, who, desperate to see her son-in-law succeed and thus secure Serafina's happiness, would pour in millions, depleting her investment portfolios. One particular venture, a luxury pet spa franchise, promising canine massages and feline facials, had swallowed nearly $5 million, money that Sterling had insisted was guaranteed to double. "Mother-in-law, trust me." It had evaporated within 18 months, leaving only a trail of unpaid bills and a bewildered Aurelia. Another, a supposed disruptive tech platform for artisanal cheese delivery, had lasted even less time, leaving Aurelia poorer by another $3 million, and Sterling richer only in excuses. Aurelia's life, meanwhile, remained surprisingly modest, a stark contrast to the opulent lifestyles she bankrolled. Her elegant townhouse, though spacious and filled with treasured antiques, was inherited and fully paid for, a solid anchor in her otherwise financially fluid existence. She drove a reliable, but unspectacular, sedan that she had owned for years, well-maintained but never replaced for the sake of novelty. Her wardrobe consisted of classic pieces, well-made and timeless, but never ostentatious. She didn't buy designer handbags or take lavish vacations. Her joy came from quiet pursuits, tending her rose garden, where each bloom was a small victory against the chaos of the world, reading classic literature, finding solace and wisdom in old stories, occasionally hosting a small, intimate tea party for her few close friends, women who valued genuine conversation over social climbing. She would often tell herself that her happiness lay in seeing her daughter thrive, even as Serafina openly mocked her simple tastes and lack of ambition. "Mother, why do you insist on living like a pauper?" Serafina had once quipped during a rare visit, gesturing dismissively at Aurelia's well-worn cashmere throw, a beloved comfort from Edward. "You have so much. You should enjoy it, like Sterling and I do. You could have a driver, a private jet. Instead, you pot around in the garden." Aurelia had simply offered a quiet smile, the words burning on her tongue. I am enjoying it, Serafina. Through you. I am enjoying the idea of your happiness. But she never spoke them aloud, fearing it would only push her daughter further away. The grandchildren, twins named Leo and Luna, were also beneficiaries of Aurelia's bottomless well of generosity. Their private school tuition, which amounted to a small fortune annually at one of the nation's most elite institutions, was meticulously paid by Aurelia. Their lavish birthday parties, complete with imported ponies, celebrity impersonators, and exorbitant catering, were funded by her, costing more than many people's annual salaries. When they expressed even a fleeting interest in a sport or a hobby, Aurelia created trust funds for them, ensuring they had access to the best equipment and coaching, from equestrian lessons to private art tutors. She held on to the fragile hope that perhaps, through them, she might finally find the unconditional love she yearned for, a pure, untainted bond. Yet, even the grandchildren seemed to absorb their parents' entitled attitudes, viewing their grandmother as a mere source of endless presents and funds, rarely offering a genuine hug or a word of unprompted affection. Grandma, where's our new gaming console? You promised. Leo had once demanded, without a please or thank you. Aurelia had simply sighed and ordered it. The true turning point, the point of no return, began subtly, a gradual tightening of the financial noose around Aurelia's own future. Serafina started making increasingly large, emergency, requests, often citing vague business opportunities for sterling or unexpected, astronomical expenses for the children. Aurelia, always obliging, began dipping into the principal of her inheritance, selling off less liquid assets, the core of her long-term security. A small, charming cottage she owned in Nantucket, a beloved retreat where she and Edward had spent their happiest summers, was sold to cover Sterling's urgent need for capital for yet another failing venture, a supposed ecotourism startup that vanished as quickly as it appeared. The sale broke Aurelia's heart, but Serafina's insistent pleas about Sterling's breakthrough moment had worn her down. Her exquisite collection of vintage sports cars, a shared passion with her late husband, slowly dwindled, each sale funding some new extravagance for Serafina or Sterling, or covering the mounting debts from their previous fiascos. Each sale felt like a piece of Edward, a piece of her past, slipping away. Then came the dream home. It began as casual conversations, Serafina painting a picture of an architectural marvel, a testament to their success, a legacy. It's going to be so grand, Mother, Serafina would gush over the phone, never inviting Aurelia to see the plans, never asking for her input beyond the financial. We're designing it from scratch, absolutely custom, every detail handpicked. Edward would have been so proud of the vision. The irony was not lost on Aurelia, whose husband had actually designed many truly magnificent homes, none of which had needed to be bought through manipulation and theft. Aurelia had felt a growing unease, a cold premonition, but her lifelong habit of self-sacrifice and her desperate hope for Serafina's happiness kept her from voicing her fears. Aurelia had always maintained a separate, substantial account, a carefully managed nest egg meant for her own long-term security, her potential medical needs, or simply her peace of mind in her twilight years. This was the fund she had explicitly told Serafina was off-limits, the one she considered sacred, her last bastion of independence. Serafina, of course, had feigned understanding, even agreement, with a saccharine smile and a fleeting touch on Aurelia's arm. But beneath the facade of familial concern, Serafina and Sterling had been meticulously orchestrating their grand betrayal. They had somehow obtained Aurelia's power of attorney through a series of subtly manipulated documents, slipped in among legitimate papers Aurelia had signed over the years for other transactions, a property sale here, an investment transfer there, all signed in good faith, always with Aurelia trusting her daughter implicitly. They had systematically diverted funds, creating shell corporations and intricate financial pathways to funnel millions directly into the construction of their lavish new estate. The final insult wasn't just the theft, it was the audacious condescension that accompanied it. Aurelia had received a terse, almost dismissive, text message from Serafina a month prior, a brief digital announcement that felt colder than a formal letter. Mom, the house is almost done. It's incredible. So much work, but worth every penny. You'll hear about the housewarming soon. Not an invitation, not a call, just a casual, gloating announcement of their magnificent achievement, implicitly funded by Aurelia's drained accounts, yet without any genuine acknowledgement or invitation to share in the dream. The formal invitation, arriving days after Mr. Albright's devastating call, was the final, sharp twist of the knife. It laid bare the truth: Aurelia was not a beloved matriarch, she was merely an ATM, drained dry and then cast aside, deemed no longer useful. And that, Aurelia realized, was the last straw. The quiet, gentle widow was finally, irrevocably, broken free from the chains of her own misplaced devotion. The morning after receiving the housewarming invitation, Aurelia Vance did not weep or rage. Such raw emotions felt alien to the cold, surgical precision of her resolve. Instead, she moved with a quiet, almost unnerving efficiency. Her first call was not to Serafina, nor to Sterling, but to Bartholomew Davies, her late husband's trusted estate lawyer, a man of impeccable integrity and keen intellect, whose office on Park Avenue felt like a bastion of old-world discretion. Mr. Davies, a man in his early 70s with shrewd eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetually unruffled demeanor, listened patiently, his face growing grimmer with each detail Aurelia recounted of Mr. Albright's grim discovery. His initial shock quickly morphed into a grim determination that mirrored Aurelia's own. "Mrs. Vance," Mr. Davies had said, his voice low and firm, his customary legal calm replaced by a rare flicker of righteous indignation, "this is not merely a family dispute over inherited wealth. This is grand larceny. Financial fraud of the highest order. The scale of it, it's truly audacious." Aurelia nodded, her eyes fixed on a distant point in the ornate wallpaper of Mr. Davies's office, a floral pattern that seemed to bloom and wither simultaneously in her mind. "I want it all back, Mr. Davies. Every cent. And I want them to understand the consequences of their actions. Not just for me, but for what they have stolen from their own moral compass, from their very humanity." She spoke with a clarity that surprised even herself. Over the next few weeks, Aurelia and Mr. Davies worked tirelessly, their collaboration a silent, powerful force. Mr. Davies, leveraging his extensive network, brought in a team of highly specialized forensic accountants and seasoned private investigators. They meticulously traced every transaction, every shell company, every subtly forged signature on documents Aurelia vaguely remembered signing. The evidence mounted day by day, damning and undeniable, forming an intricate web of deceit. They discovered that Serafina, using a subtly altered power of attorney document, had been systematically transferring funds, justifying them as investments in Sterling's various companies, all funneled eventually into the construction of their new estate. Furthermore, the investigations unearthed irregularities in the construction permits, architectural plans that deviated significantly from approved specifications, and even some non-compliance issues with local building codes, all shortcuts taken, it became clear, to maximize profits using Aurelia's stolen money. It was a house built not just on stolen funds, but on a foundation of lies, legal negligence, and a staggering disregard for regulations. During this period, Aurelia also took decisive action on her own. She called her bank, initiating a full review of all her accounts, locking down access. She immediately revoked all powers of attorney previously granted to Serafina or Sterling, a move that sent immediate, if initially unnoticed, ripples through their meticulously crafted financial facade. She cancelled all standing orders, all automatic payments for their various expenses that she had been covering for years, the children's allowances, Serafina's personal stylist, Sterling's exclusive club memberships, the maintenance on their fleet of luxury cars. This was not a negotiation, it was an amputation, swift and clean. The first signs of trouble for Serafina and Sterling were subtle, almost imperceptible to their self-absorbed minds, which were too busy planning their next extravagant purchase. Sterling's corporate credit card, which Aurelia had always quietly paid, was declined during a lavish dinner with potential investors at a Michelin-starred restaurant. He laughed it off, blaming the restaurant's faulty system, his face reddening slightly, but a seed of unease was planted. Serafina's personal shopper called, perplexed, to inform her that her American Express Centurion card, her symbol of unbridled privilege, had been declined for a new haute couture gown from Paris. Serafina, incensed, called the bank, only to be met with a cold, automated voice stating insufficient funds. Impossible, she shrieked into the phone, convinced it was a technical error, a momentary hiccup in the universe's grand design to provide for her. Then came the avalanche of small indignities, each one chipping away at their carefully constructed reality. The private school tuition for Leo and Luna bounced, prompting an embarrassingly stern call from the headmistress. Their electricity bill for their temporary rental home, where they were living while the dream home was being finished, was suddenly overdue, leading to a brief but terrifying blackout. The lease payment for Sterling's latest luxury SUV was missed, resulting in aggressive calls from the dealership. Their housekeeper, landscaper, and personal chef all reported non-payment. Each time, Serafina or Sterling would call Aurelia, initially with mild annoyance, then with escalating frustration, their voices sharp with entitlement. "Mother, what on earth is going on with the children's tuition? The school is calling me. They're threatening to pull Leo and Luna out." Serafina demanded over the phone, her voice shrill with indignation, as if Aurelia had personally wronged her. Aurelia's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, a quiet counterpoint to Serafina's histrionics. "Is it, dear? How unusual. I suppose you'll have to handle it, won't you?" "Handle it? Mother, you've always handled it. You know how busy we are with the new house, the foundation, the landscaping, the interior designers." Serafina trailed off, a flicker of suspicion finally entering her mind, a tiny crack in her denial. "What do you mean, I have to handle it?" "Indeed," Aurelia replied, a hint of something unyielding, something new, in her tone. "Things change, Serafina. Responsibilities shift. People grow up." Sterling, ever more direct and less prone to histrionics, called Aurelia a few days later, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage, laced with a predatory edge. "Aurelia, what exactly is going on with the investment funds? The bank is saying they're frozen. Is this some kind of technical glitch? Because if it costs me this deal, I swear I'll make you regret it." "There is no glitch, Sterling," Aurelia interrupted, her voice a cool bomb that somehow intensified his fury, like ice on a burn. "The funds are no longer accessible to you. Nor will they ever be again." A stunned silence followed. Sterling, who had always assumed Aurelia was too timid, too dependent on their love to ever truly cut them off, too bound by her own sense of family duty, was momentarily speechless. What do you mean? You can't do that. We have agreements. Verbal contracts, implied understandings." "Agreements, Sterling," Aurelia said, the words heavy with unspoken meaning, with the weight of decades of deceit, imply mutual consent and respect. Something that has been sorely lacking on your end for a very long time. You will find that some agreements, particularly those built on manipulation and fraud, do not hold up well under scrutiny." The calls became more frequent, more desperate, morphing from annoyance to thinly veiled threats, then to emotional blackmail. Serafina would call, weeping dramatically, claiming her life was falling apart, that she was humiliated by the school, that Leo and Luna were suffering from their sudden lack of designer clothes and private jets. Sterling would call, his voice laced with menace, hinting at legal action, reminding her of family loyalty and the damage to their family name. Aurelia listened to each desperate plea, each manipulative word, with the quiet detachment of a seasoned surgeon performing a necessary, albeit painful, operation. She felt no joy in their distress, only a profound weariness, a confirmation of the self-serving, empty individuals they truly were. The illusion had shattered, and what remained was a cold, hard truth. As Mr. Davies compiled the final, irrefutable evidence, a meticulously documented case of embezzlement and fraud, he presented Aurelia with a startling option. Given the scale of the financial fraud, the architectural noncompliance, and the sheer audacity of building a structure on stolen funds that also violated local ordinances, they could pursue not just civil action for restitution, but also a formal demolition order. It was a drastic measure, one that would completely dismantle Serafina's dream home, leaving nothing but a barren plot of land, but it was legally sound given the extent of the fraud and the building code violations unearthed. Aurelia listened to Mr. Davies's explanation, her gaze fixed on a framed photograph of Edward, smiling kindly from her desk, his eyes full of warmth and integrity. Edward, who had always built with integrity, with true artistry, creating structures that stood the test of time, beautiful and honest. The thought of a home built on such a crooked foundation, literally and figuratively, a monument to greed and betrayal, was an affront to his memory. She thought of Serafina's gloating invitation, of Sterling's smug confidence, of the decades of subtle manipulation. A demolition order. It was not just about retribution, it was about tearing down the monument to their avarice, about exposing the rotten core beneath the glittering facade. It was about justice, not merely revenge. "Do it, Mr. Davies," Aurelia said, her voice clear and unwavering, resonating with a newfound authority that surprised even the seasoned lawyer. "Secure the order. Let it be served at the housewarming." Mr. Davies nodded, a rare, approving smile touching his lips, a look of respect. He had known Aurelia for decades, but he had never seen her so utterly resolute, so powerfully clear in her purpose. The quiet strength she had always possessed, hidden beneath layers of gentle acquiescence and self-sacrifice, was finally, powerfully, unleashed. The demolition order was signed, sealed, and delivered, ready to be presented at the most opportune, and devastating, moment. The housewarming. The day before the housewarming, the storm broke. Serafina and Sterling, now in a state of outright panic, descended upon Aurelia's townhouse. The repeated declines, the unpaid bills, the shocking news from their bank that all their credit lines had been revoked and their accounts frozen, it had finally dawned on them that this was not a glitch, but a deliberate, crushing act. And they knew exactly who was behind it. Sterling hammered on the door, his face contorted with fury, his perfectly tailored suit rumpled. "Aurelia. Open this door right now. This is ridiculous." Serafina stood beside him, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly disheveled, mascara streaking her expensive makeup, tears streaming down her face, a performance she had perfected over decades, one she hoped would still melt her mother's heart. Aurelia, seated calmly in her drawing room, sipping a cup of Earl Grey, heard the commotion. She had expected them. This was the reckoning. With a serene breath, she rose and slowly opened the door, her expression calm, almost distant, her eyes betraying nothing of the battle within. "Mother. What is the meaning of this?" Serafina shrieked, pushing past Aurelia into the elegant foyer, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "My cards are all declined. The children's tuition hasn't been paid. You've ruined us. You've ruined my life." Sterling, his voice dangerously low, his anger barely contained, added, "Aurelia, this is beyond a joke. You've interfered with our finances, our business. This is illegal. We will sue you. We will make sure you lose everything you have left." He puffed out his chest, attempting to intimidate her with his usual bluster. Aurelia closed the door softly behind them, the click of the latch sounding unervingly final. She turned to face them, her gaze steady, unwavering, meeting Serafina's wild accusations and Sterling's menacing glare head-on. "Illegal, Sterling," she repeated, her voice soft, yet it carried an unexpected weight, an iron will hidden within its gentle tone. "That's a rather interesting choice of word, coming from you. Perhaps we should discuss legality." "Don't play coy, mother." Serafina wailed, collapsing onto a nearby antique settee, clutching her head dramatically, tears now flowing freely. "You've always been so jealous of our success, haven't you? You can't stand that we've made something of ourselves, that we've surpassed your humble life." Aurelia simply watched her daughter, a profound sadness in her eyes, a weariness born of a lifetime of disappointment. "Jealous, Serafina? Of what, precisely? Of a life built on borrowed money? Of a success that was never truly earned, but merely extracted from the pockets of others? A life that required the constant draining of another's resources? Sterling stepped forward, his fists clenched, his face a mask of thwarted entitlement. Watch your tone, old woman. We are your family. We took care of you. We visited you, we made sure you weren't alone. What kind of mother does this to her own flesh and blood? You're ungrateful. Family, Aurelia mused, the word tasting like ash on her tongue, bitter and stale. Is that what you call it? For decades, I poured my husband's legacy, my life's blood, into your extravagant whims. Do you remember the Mercedes, Serafina? Your Hamptons starter home? Sterling's endless adventures that mysteriously vanished into thin air, leaving me to pick up the pieces? The children's tuitions, their trusts, their lavish parties with imported ponies and acrobats? I paid for it all. I bought your cars, your clothes, your vacations, your very lifestyle. Every luxury, every comfort you enjoyed, came from me. And what did I receive in return? Condescension. Disrespect. And, ultimately, the most profound betrayal and outright theft. Serafina looked up, momentarily stunned by her mother's uncharacteristic directness, her usually placid voice now sharp with a cold edge. Theft? What are you talking about? Are you losing your mind, mother? The feigned innocence was a thin veil, easily seen through by Aurelia, who had long mastered the art of observation. My entire life savings, Serafina, Aurelia stated, her voice still calm, but now infused with a cold, hard edge of undeniable truth. Every last penny. Systematically siphoned from my accounts. My security, my future, my peace of mind, gone. All of it. All to fund your dream home. The one you boasted about. Sterling scoffed, attempting to regain his composure. Don't be ridiculous, Aurelia. We merely managed your assets, as any good family would. You signed the power of attorney. Perfectly legal. You gave us permission. Did I, Sterling? Aurelia's eyes narrowed slightly, a spark of ice in their cerulean depths. Or did you and Serafina cleverly manipulate me into signing documents that gave you carte blanche to empty my accounts without my full, informed consent? Did you bury those documents among a stack of legitimate papers for other transactions, knowing I would trust you blindly? And did you do so with the intention of building a house that, as it turns out, is riddled with financial fraud and architectural noncompliance? A house built on lies? Serafina scrambled to her feet, her performance shifting seamlessly from aggrieved victim to desperate supplicant, her voice now a plaintive whine. Mother, please. It was just a loan. A temporary measure. We were going to pay you back, as soon as Sterling's next venture took off. The house is almost finished. Our dream. You wouldn't destroy our dream, would you? Think of Leo and Luna. They love their new rooms. Their incredible play areas. She reached for Aurelia's hand, but Aurelia subtly pulled it away, an imperceptible movement that spoke volumes. You speak of loans, Serafina, but there was never an intention to repay, was there? Only to take more. And more. For years. And as for your dream, it was built on a nightmare for me. A nightmare of betrayal and blatant disregard for my trust, my well-being. Aurelia paused, her gaze sweeping over their panicked, desperate faces. And as for the house, it seems your dreams are about to come crashing down, quite literally. She walked to her desk, her movements deliberate, almost ceremonial, and picked up a large, official-looking document, its pages crisp and weighty. She turned back, her eyes meeting Serafina's, then Sterling's. The glint of steel was undeniable now, a reflection of the unbreakable will forged in the fires of their betrayal. Mr. Davies, my lawyer, Aurelia began, her voice resonating with an authority they had never heard, a power that silenced their bluster, has been very busy on my behalf. We have uncovered incontrovertible evidence of financial fraud, of your systematic embezzlement of my funds. We have also discovered numerous building code violations and architectural non-compliance issues related to your new residence. A house built on such a foundation of deceit, it seems, cannot stand, legally or morally. She unfolded the document, revealing the bold official seal, the imposing government watermarks, the precise legal language. I will be attending your housewarming tomorrow, Serafina, Aurelia continued, her voice devoid of warmth, cold as marble, but not with a gift. I will be bringing this instead. She held up the document for them to see. It was a formal, legally binding demolition order, clearly titled and stamped. The color drained from Serafina's face, leaving it ashen, her eyes wide with uncomprehending horror. Sterling stared, his jaw slack, his bluster completely deflated, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. The words hung in the air, heavy and final, solid as concrete. This order, Aurelia explained, her voice gaining a chilling edge of calm triumph, authorizes the immediate cessation of all construction and, upon a final inspection, the complete demolition of your dream home. It is legally acquired, thoroughly investigated, and completely irrevocable. It will be served tomorrow, publicly, at your little celebration. Serafina let out a small, guttural sob, a sound of genuine despair, collapsing back onto the settee, no longer feigning tears but truly weeping, her performance shattered. No. Mother, you can't. Please. Our home. Our life. What will people say? We'll be ruined. They will say, Aurelia replied, her voice unwavering, a quiet echo of justice, that justice has finally been served. That you cannot build your gilded cage on the ruins of another's trust and security. My decision is final. You have taken everything from me for too long. Now, I am taking back what is mine, and ensuring you cannot do this to anyone else. This is the consequence. Sterling, recovering slightly, tried one last desperate tactic, a final, pathetic attempt at control. This is blackmail, Aurelia. This is malicious. We'll fight you. We'll tie this up in court for years. We have lawyers too. Aurelia simply smiled, a faint, almost pitying smile, a gesture of absolute certainty. You are welcome to try, Sterling. But Mr. Davies assures me the evidence against you is overwhelming, the fraud undeniable. The costs of fighting this, the public humiliation, the potential criminal charges. I suspect you will find it far easier to simply accept the consequences of your actions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. I believe I will wear my blue suit. She walked towards the door, opened it with a silent click, and gestured for them to leave, her stance firm, unyielding. Serafina, still sobbing, stumbled out, a broken heap of designer clothing and smeared makeup. Sterling followed, his face a mask of shocked defeat, his shoulders slumped. The man who had once exuded arrogant confidence was utterly diminished. As the door clicked shut behind them, a profound silence filled Aurelia's drawing room. She leaned against the doorframe for a moment, a deep, cleansing breath filling her lungs, sweeping away the dust of decades of resentment. The years of quiet suffering, the burden of their ingratitude, the constant pressure of their demands, lifted from her shoulders. The tears that finally welled in her eyes were not of sorrow, but of an overwhelming, liberating relief. She had finally spoken her truth, taken back her power, and the silence that followed was not empty, but filled with the resonant echo of her newfound strength. Serafina and Sterling stumbled out of Aurelia's townhouse, the chill of the evening air matching the icy dread that had settled in their stomachs. The pristine street, usually a symbol of Aurelia's quiet wealth and the secure foundation of their own entitlements, now felt like a pathway to their ruin. Serafina, her mascara streaking her tear-stained face, clutched at Sterling's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. She's insane, Sterling. Absolutely insane. She can't do this. Our house. Our reputation. What will we do? Sterling, however, was in a deeper, more primal state of shock. The demolition order. The sheer audacity, the cold, calculated revenge of it. He, who had always manipulated and charmed his way out of trouble, always finding an angle, was utterly powerless. His mind raced, desperately trying to find a loophole, a legal technicality, anything. But Aurelia's calm, almost serene demeanor, combined with the official, imposing nature of the document, had struck a fear into him he hadn't known since childhood. It was a fear of true, irreversible consequence. They returned to their temporary rental, a lavish but ultimately unowned property, to a rapidly deteriorating reality. Their phones began to ring incessantly, a relentless, irritating symphony of their downfall. The private school had formally suspended Leo and Luna, demanding immediate payment and threatening expulsion. The luxury car dealership was calling about overdue lease payments on 3 separate vehicles. Sterling's investors, whom he had promised a percentage of his non-existent profits from the collapsed, artisanal cheese tech venture, were now demanding their principal back, having caught wind of the financial instability surrounding the Vance Sterling name. His once booming social media presence, filled with curated images of opulence, private jet travel, and exclusive parties, now became a graveyard of unanswered messages and increasingly hostile comments from former associates and even friends who had loaned them money or invested in their dubious ventures. The facade was crumbling, not just financially, but socially. The housewarming was, predictably, a disaster. Aurelia arrived precisely on time, as always, dressed impeccably in a timeless navy suit, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips, a glint of triumph in her eyes. She carried no gift, only a slim, elegant leather portfolio tucked neatly under her arm. The moment she entered the opulent, unfinished great room, still echoing with the sounds of contractors making last-minute adjustments, Serafina's eyes widened in horror. Sterling, already engaged in a tense, hushed conversation with a major contractor who was threatening to walk off the job due to unpaid invoices, froze mid-sentence, his face paling. Aurelia did not seek them out immediately. She moved through the small crowd of bewildered guests, most of whom were friends of Serafina and Sterling, superficial acquaintances who were already whispering about the financial rumors swirling around the couple. With quiet dignity, Aurelia found a prominent place near the grand staircase, in full view of the main hall, a natural stage. When Serafina, her face pale and strained, finally approached her mother, trying to force a brittle, desperate smile, Aurelia simply extended the portfolio. "Serafina, Sterling," Aurelia said, her voice clear enough for those nearby to hear, yet calm, devoid of any histrionics, "I believe this belongs to you. It's the final piece of your dream home." She handed the demolition order to a trembling Serafina. "It appears your new home, built on such questionable foundations, will not be standing for long. The demolition begins next week." The revelation caused an immediate, stunned silence that swept through the room like a cold draft. Guests exchanged shocked glances, their champagne flutes pausing midair. Serafina let out a strangled gasp, the document fluttering from her fingers to the polished marble floor like a dead leaf. Sterling rushed forward, snatching it up, his face contorted in a silent scream of rage and despair, a guttural sound trapped in his throat. His attempts to bluster, to deny, to threaten, were met with confused stares from guests, some of whom started to discreetly make their exits, already reaching for their phones to spread the news. The dream home, the symbol of their supposed triumph, instantly transformed into a monument of their hubris, a grotesque joke. The party dissolved into chaos, whispers, and the rapid departure of their fair-weather friends, leaving Serafina and Sterling standing alone amidst the ruins of their grand illusion. As Serafina and Sterling faced the cold, hard reality of their ruined social standing and imminent financial collapse, Aurelia began to take the first, tentative steps into her new, liberated life. The day after the housewarming, she called Mrs. Henderson, an old college friend she hadn't seen in years, due to Serafina's constant demands on her time and finances, which had left Aurelia little time or emotional energy for genuine friendships. "Eleanor, my dear," Aurelia said, her voice lighter than it had been in decades, a youthful lilt returning, "would you care to join me for lunch? My treat. And perhaps, we could finally plan that trip to Tuscany we always talked about, the one we postponed for so long?" Eleanor, surprised and delighted, readily agreed, a genuine warmth in her voice that Aurelia had sorely missed. Aurelia also started revisiting her old hobbies, passions that had been neglected under the weight of her daughter's demands. She rediscovered her love for painting, dusting off her neglected easel and brushes, setting it up in a bright corner of her study. Her canvases, once blank, now filled with vibrant colors and scenes of serene beauty, her rose garden, the quiet moments of nature, the faces of beloved, honest friends. She enrolled in a local gardening club, finding genuine camaraderie among fellow plant enthusiasts who shared her quiet joys. She joined a bridge club, took cooking classes, and even volunteered at a local animal shelter, finding immense joy in caring for neglected creatures, a selfless act that brought her more peace than any amount of money could. She met with her financial advisor, Mr. Albright, not to discuss lost funds, but to plan wise investments for her remaining, secure assets, ensuring her future comfort. The weight of her daughter's financial demands, which had silently pressed down on her for so long, had finally lifted. She felt a lightness, a freedom she hadn't experienced since Edward's passing, a sense of reclamation. The first steps were small, but each one was imbued with a quiet, profound joy, a testament to her renewed spirit. Months later, the dust had literally settled on Serafina and Sterling Vance Sterling's dream home. The demolition had been swift and complete, overseen by Mr. Davies's firm, leaving behind an empty, scarred plot of land, a stark, desolate testament to the consequences of their avarice. The news had spread like wildfire through their social circles, leaving them utterly ostracized, their names synonymous with scandal and financial ruin, branded as the couple whose greed literally brought their house down. Serafina and Sterling, stripped of their accustomed luxuries and the endless flow of Aurelia's money, found themselves in a reality they had actively scorned for decades, working for a living. Sterling's ventures had collapsed entirely, leaving him with a mountain of debt and a tarnished reputation, no one willing to invest in his vision anymore. He found himself taking on odd jobs, anything to make ends meet, a far cry from his former self-proclaimed status as a visionary entrepreneur. He now worked as a glorified assistant in a small, struggling marketing firm, his ego bruised beyond repair. Serafina, who had never worked a day in her life beyond managing her social calendar and her family's extravagant consumption, struggled immensely. She took a low-paying job as a retail assistant in a boutique, a place she once frequented as a high-spending client, forced to sell the very luxuries she once bought without a second thought. The humiliation was constant, the reality of meager paychecks and hard work a brutal shock to her system. They had moved into a small, rented apartment, a stark contrast to the mansions they had once inhabited, struggling to adjust to a life without staff, without endless credit lines. Leo and Luna, though still attending private school, albeit on a scholarship Sterling had to beg for, a further blow to his pride, were acutely aware of their diminished circumstances, their once privileged lives now marked by tangible restrictions, by the absence of their grandmother's boundless generosity. The children, for the first time, were learning the true value of $1, and the very real consequences of their parents' actions. Aurelia Vance, however, was thriving. She had taken that trip to Tuscany with Eleanor, reveling in the art, the history, the vibrant flavors, and the simple pleasure of unburdened companionship. Upon her return, she renovated a part of her townhouse, creating a bright, airy studio where she painted to her heart's content, her canvases filled with vibrant colors and scenes of serene beauty, each brushstroke a celebration of her freedom. She joined a bridge club, took cooking classes, and even volunteered regularly at a local animal shelter, finding immense joy in caring for neglected creatures, a quiet satisfaction in small, meaningful contributions. Her quiet nature was no longer mistaken for weakness, instead, it was now recognized as a source of profound inner strength, a deep well of resilience. She lived comfortably, wisely managing the secure portion of her inheritance that remained, enjoying every moment without the constant shadow of financial demands or emotional manipulation. She occasionally heard whispers of Serafina and Sterling's struggles, but she felt no schadenfreude, no petty delight in their misery. Only a quiet certainty that they were finally facing the reality they had so desperately avoided. They were learning, the hard way, to stand on their own 2 feet, to earn their own way, and perhaps, just perhaps, to understand the true cost of their previous lifestyle. Aurelia had finally understood that love and respect could not be bought, no matter how vast the fortune. Genuine connection stemmed from mutual regard, integrity, and shared humanity, not from a transactional exchange of wealth for manufactured affection. She had spent a lifetime giving, hoping for reciprocity, for a love that would never come from her daughter. Now, she was giving to herself, investing in her own peace, her own happiness, and her own dignity. And in doing so, she had found a richer, more profound sense of fulfillment than any amount of money could ever purchase. The greatest act of loyalty, Aurelia realized, was often to oneself, a quiet, resolute declaration of self-worth. Aurelia Vance's incredible journey from quiet sacrifice to triumphant liberation is a powerful reminder that even the gentlest souls can possess an unbreakable will when pushed too far, and that true justice, though sometimes slow, eventually finds its way. Her story delves into the profound complexities of human relationships and the pivotal moments when individuals reclaim their power, their dignity, and their lives. If you were moved by Aurelia's courage and her pursuit of justice, you'll find many more powerful stories of resilience, betrayal, and life lessons right here on our channel. We delve into the true complexities of human relationships and the moments when individuals reclaim their power. Don't miss out on our next compelling narrative. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when we release a new video. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Aurelia's story. What was the most impactful moment for you? Have you ever faced a similar situation of profound ingratitude or betrayal, where you felt you had to draw a line? What would you have done if you were in Aurelia's shoes? Share your experiences and insights in the comments section below. Your stories and perspectives are an invaluable part of our community.